Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. So I love this question. I got to get to this question. What percentage of children with autism do you think struggle with aggression? Why is the percentage of aggression in children with autism so much higher than in neurotypical children?
That's a great question. So, and hopefully you'll have enough of a Wi-Fi connection that I can talk about this a little bit. So autism, one of the things that I find interesting is that people always think that challenging behaviors are somehow part of autism, and they're not. So aggression or, tantruming, throwing things, biting, running away, hitting, all of those things are not part of the diagnosis of autism. They have absolutely no relation to the symptoms of autism whatsoever. They're not listed as a symptom, okay? So why do they occur in our kids? And the very simple answer is they occur because our kids are frustrated. And why are our kids frustrated? Just because they cannot get their communication across. So either it's because they just can't communicate vocally and they can't get their needs met, or they can communicate vocally, but not at a level that helps us really understand what it is they're trying to say. So just like us, if you think about it, when you get into an argument with your spouse or someone else, it's because there's a misunderstanding, right? Like two people don't understand each other. And it's the same exact thing. When we feel we have not been heard, when we feel you're just not getting me, you're not understanding what I'm trying to say, you don't understand what I want, that's when we get angry. And of course, as adults now, we've learned that we have to control our anger and we can't hit. Most adults have learned that. And as children, a lot of children learn that lesson very early on, maybe at age 1, 2, 3. Sometimes they learn it at home. Sometimes they learn they can't hit when they go to school, but we learn that, right? But with our kids on the spectrum, they don't learn that. First of all, because I think everyone is just kind of scared and backs off, and they don't know. A lot of times when someone gets a diagnosis of autism, we feel like we cannot place the same continuum. We can't educate that person in the same manner. So he's autistic, I gotta let him hit. And that's not the case at all. And then secondly, it's because the child has way more reason to be frustrated, because they can't, in most cases, they can't vocalize, they can't communicate. And to top it off, I think they also get frustrated because the sensory input from the world for them is a little bit more disagreeable than it is for us. So for a lot of kids, sounds bother them, lights bother them. So, and a lot of our kids don't sleep. And so there's all these irritants, let's call them, or things that are frustrating and irritating. And as a result, I think a lot of our kids become aggressive. They learn to communicate through aggression. Now, why does that stay? And that's a really good kind of ABA lesson. When a child wants something and they hit and they grab the item, if it's a typically developing child, normally what we do as parents is we'll say, that's not okay, and give that back. And they take the object back, give it to the other child or whatever it is, right? So the child who just hit learns that is not an effective way to communicate. With kids on the spectrum, when they hit and they pull something from another child, we don't really reprimand. Often we'll be like, oh, it's okay, just give it to him. He can't communicate, just let him have it. And so the child on the spectrum learns that communicating with aggression is effective. And so once they've learned that communication through aggression or through tantruming or through any of those things is effective, it remains as an effective way to communicate until we teach them it isn't effective. And that is the whole key to ABA in the beginning. That's why it's not that hard to get rid of those challenging behaviors, because we teach kids it is not okay to hit or tantrum or do any of those challenging behaviors. Instead, it is to have words, to use icons, but communicate in a more appropriate way. You're muted.
I was just saying that I think it's because you explained it to me so well over the years, it now makes total sense to me. And the thing that I always say to people is that if you or I were abducted by aliens and we were taken someplace and we could not understand what they were saying, we didn't understand what they wanted, we didn't understand how to read their facial expressions or how to understand when they were, because they don't have fingers, they're not pointing, how long would it take me to have a total meltdown? And I guess that for me, it would take 14 minutes, that I would be done in 14 minutes, that I would start yelling, screaming, throwing things to see what kind of a reaction I could get. Because within 14 minutes, I would need to use the restroom, have a drink of water. I would be hot or I would be cold or I would be scared or whatever. And if I couldn't, I would try a bunch of different ways to communicate. And if I couldn't, 14 minutes is what I think it would take me, because I'm not a very tolerant person and I have sensory issues. So, that's kind of our kids. If they don't have any other way to read the situation, they're going to act out that way. And it is not just them. I just was listening to you and I had this epiphany, as I always do when you talk, Dr. Granpeesheh, because this morning the thing that I wanted to ask you this morning is, how on earth do we teach the police to stop handcuffing our children when they're having a meltdown? Like, how do we do that? But you just described for me that there's a rule structure and the police officer says, stop doing this. And if they don't, they have learned what's effective at getting, because you're not listening to me, what's effective is I handcuff you, and they have not realized that this is like crazy to do to children. There's another story in the news today about a girl, like a 7-year-old girl on the spectrum, being handcuffed by a police officer because she's having a meltdown. And I want to be able to, like what I heard you clearly just say is that as long as it's effective, they're going to keep doing it. I want to stop having that be effective for the police officers, because it's their go-to, and they continue to, and it's not just kids on the spectrum, and I don't want to take this to a whole political level, but it is the modality that we have given the police without giving them another way of getting their needs met, which is to get someone to comply. I had that epiphany when you were talking. I just want to remind people, it is not just kids on the spectrum who have this issue where they're acting way too aggressively for a circumstance because they feel like they're not being listened to, and it works for them. So I don't know if you want to say anything to that, but somebody said, I wish I had that knowledge years ago. It would have made the last 3 years completely different, right? When we get it that our kids are not wrong, weird, or different, it's just that they're frustrated and they don't have a way of communicating, it changes things.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, I see that we're out of time. Yeah. Hello to the person from Morocco. Yeah. It's nice to have people also from different parts of the world join us today. And that's where I'm headed right now. I'm getting on another Zoom call to work with a group of people who are opening autism clinics in Saudi Arabia. So which I'm very excited to be able to help them do that.
Please give my love to that family. You know that I have met them and love them. So please give them my love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Granpeesheh, for giving us all so much information and so much help and hope. We so appreciate you. And I hope you have a great call. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.